I suspect my husband is father of our best friend's children, and I'm spiraling because her oldest kid started to date our daughter. I'm a 42-year-old woman, and my husband, Ben, is 43. So is his best friend, Anna. I met Ben in college, but he's known Anna since they were kids, about 7 years old. They've been close ever since, sharing practically everything and understanding each other with just a look. They've always called themselves surrogate siblings. When Ben and I first started dating, I felt a bit insecure about Anna and their closeness, but they reassured me that there was nothing romantic between them. Never had been, never would be. They both insisted that Anna was simply the sister Ben never had. I chose to believe them, and over time, I let go of any uneasiness. Eventually, Anna and I became close too, and she even officiated our wedding. Ben and I built a wonderful life together with a solid relationship at its core. After we got married and moved in together, we still saw a lot of Anna, and I didn't mind. I spent plenty of evenings trying to help Anna find a guy, as she was always lamenting how unlucky she was in love. When Ben and I started having kids, so did Anna, though by then, she wasn't in any committed relationship. For context, here's our family lineup. Our kids are Sarah, 15, Andrew, 12, Lily, 10, and Travis, 6. Anna's kids are Dave, 17, Kendall, 14, and twins Seth and Julie, 9. At that time, Anna wasn't with anyone. She wasn't married or even in a steady relationship. Whenever she got pregnant, Ben and I assumed she must have had casual flings, maybe with people she didn't stay in touch with afterward. I'd ask if she knew who the fathers were, but she'd always say no. It didn't seem to worry her, so I didn't push. Besides, she had us for support. While Anna never asked for help, Ben wouldn't let his best friend struggle, especially with kids involved. Financially, we're lucky. I have a good job, and Ben's parents, who already adored Anna, were more than happy to help support her. People might judge her decisions, especially about birth control, but she's always had strong feelings against it for reasons she's tried explaining, though I never fully understood. It's not religious or anything like that, but it matters to her. Since Anna and Ben are best friends, it's natural for them to spend time together, sometimes even without me. I'd hang out with her too, but Ben saw her more often. He'd go over to her place and occasionally stay overnight. I trusted him and didn't think much of it. They acted like siblings, nothing more. Our kids grew up together, developing strong friendships. Looking back now, I wonder if those friendships might be something more. Lately, though, I can't shake a feeling. I suspect Ben might be the father of at least one of Anna's kids, maybe even all of them. It's hard to believe Ben would do something like that, but the way he acts with her kids, especially as they've gotten older, feels a bit fatherly. He's always checking up on them and helping out. It might seem noble, being a father figure to these kids who don't have one, but combined with everything else, it's raised questions in my mind. Appearance-wise, Anna's kids look strikingly similar to Ben, in ways that seem more than coincidental. Kendall has a unique allergy Ben shares, and the twins, especially Seth, look so much like him. Dave, too, has grown to resemble Ben in both looks and personality. They're biracial, and while that doesn't prove anything, it adds to my suspicions. I've never voiced these thoughts to Ben or Anna. I don't want to hurt anyone, especially since, technically, I could be wrong. Still, I've hinted to Ben that I'd like him to spend more time with me, subtly asking for more of his attention. Either he hasn't picked up on it, or he's choosing to ignore it. He's never neglected me, but I keep coming back to this nagging suspicion that there was, or maybe still is, something more than friendship between him and Anna. As for Anna, she never planned on being a mom. She loves her kids, of course, but she never seemed to have her heart set on motherhood. If my suspicions are right, I don't think the motive was simply to have children with Ben. It feels more complicated than that. Over the years, I've tried to ignore these doubts. When Kendall's allergy came up, I tried to brush it off. When the twins were born, I did the same. And when Anna stopped having kids after Ben's vasectomy, I desperately wanted to feel reassured, but it only fueled my anxiety. There are nights I wish the twins were younger, that they'd come along after Ben's procedure, just so I could be sure. I've been wrestling with these feelings for so long, feeling twisted up inside. It's hard to hold it all in, but I don't want to be the one to tear apart the family we've built, especially when I could be wrong. In recent months, I found myself more worried than ever, especially with new developments in our kids' social circle. Anna's oldest, Dave, asked Sarah, my oldest, out on a date. Sarah's really blossomed over the past few years, becoming a confident young woman and catching the attention of boys. So, while I wasn't surprised that she'd be interested in dating, having Dave ask her out caught me off guard. Sarah turned him down, but only because she knows I'm strict about her dating. She did the right thing by coming to me first, clearly expecting I'd see her side and say yes. But, to her surprise, I firmly said no. This led to a bit of tension between us. Sarah wasn't even that set on dating Dave. She just didn't understand why I wouldn't allow it. All I could say was, he's too old for you. And while that's true, it wasn't the real reason. When Ben and Anna heard about it, I was curious to see how they'd react. If they had agreed with Sarah or tried to convince me it was okay, I might have felt some relief, thinking I was wrong about my suspicions regarding Anna and Ben. But as it turned out, both of them supported me, although not as firmly. Ben was on my side, but thought that trying to forbid this relationship might only make Sarah want it more. He's probably right. Anna was less intense, backing me up but not treating it as a big deal. She acted like it was just a harmless crush, but it's clearly more than that. In the months since, Dave has been spending more time with Sarah, finding every chance to be alone with her, even if it's just with other friends. It's obvious he's smitten, and I know he wants to be closer to her physically. I've been watching them closely and noticed Dave's gaze lingering on her, which she doesn't seem to mind. Sarah hasn't defied me outright. She's still only seeing him as a friend, so it feels unreasonable to ban their time together completely. I'm terrified, though, that they're already seeing each other in secret. Ben and Anna have spoken with Dave about it, trying to get him to respect the boundaries, but he's determined. And while I know Sarah loves the attention, I worry that it's only a matter of time before they start dating openly. I even considered explaining to Sarah that Dave is like her brother, but I can't change how she views him. To my kids, Anna's family has always been close, but maybe to Sarah and Dave, it's more of a best friends situation. The real issue, of course, is that if my suspicions about Ben and Anna's relationship and the true paternity of Anna's kids are correct, then there's no way Sarah and Dave could ever be more than friends. No matter what, it has to stop. But I feel helpless. Ben and Anna agree Dave shouldn't date Sarah, but they seem to think it's just a teenage phase that will pass. I get the sense they're willing to wait and see, hoping this attraction will fade over time. Maybe, as Ben believes, this will end naturally. Teen crushes don't always last forever. But what if they don't grow out of it? What if Sarah lets Dave get too close, or they end up together for the long haul? My worst fear is that Sarah will do something with him that she can't take back, a choice they'd both regret. I feel like I'm on the brink of something I can't reverse, like I might lose control at any moment and scream at Ben about what he and Anna have done over the years. If I confront him about the affair and turn out to be wrong, I'll have accused both my husband and one of my best friends of an awful betrayal. Even if I'm right, everything would be destroyed. Our family, our friendships, and the world we've built together for our kids would be shattered. Ben means the world to Andrew, who sees his father as a hero. I can't imagine what this would do to him. And Anna's children are innocent. They didn't ask for any of this. Even Dave, despite his actions, doesn't deserve to bear the burden of knowing he's been attracted to his half-sister. It's so f***ed up. Right now, it feels like all I can do is hope. Hope that their feelings fade with time. Hope that Sarah doesn't make an irreversible mistake. And pray that somehow, the truth, whatever it may be, stays buried. First off, I was blown away by the response to my post. Honestly, I hadn't expected so much attention and even worried someone in my family or circle might come across it, especially after I heard it had been shared on Facebook. Thankfully, as far as I can tell, no one close to me has seen it. I want to thank the kind people who offered me support, and to those who were frustrated with my indecision, I get it. I was handling an unclear situation with extremely high stakes, where any choice I made could easily go wrong. For the past 5 years, I've imagined countless scenarios for how I might handle this if I ever decided to act. So, to everyone asking for an update, here it is. I'd initially planned to do a secret DNA test. That was the route I thought I'd take, but in the end, I couldn't go through with it, and now I regret that because the chance has essentially passed. It felt wrong to get a sample from someone else's child without their knowledge. It just seemed ethically off. After consulting with my lawyer, as many commenters suggested, she advised against it because, no matter the results, it would look bad in a possible divorce case. Still, I wish I had just done it and kept it to myself. The need to know is eating at me, and I still don't have answers. I'd also thought about telling Sarah in confidence, but even that seemed like crossing a line, like I had no right to put such doubts about her father in her head without speaking to him first. So I ended up confronting Ben and Anna. A lot of people recommended this, so I finally decided to get it all out in the open. I thought it'd be pointless to approach just one of them because they'd probably tell each other what happened, putting me at a disadvantage. I wanted both of them to hear my side at once. Once the kids were off at school, I laid out everything, all my suspicions and reasons. I told them both how much I loved them, but pointed out that various clues had made me notice the similarities between Ben and Anna's kids. I hadn't even listed all of them in the original post. For example, Ben used to sleepwalk, and so do Sarah, Dave, and Seth. I tried to express how much I cared, but the thought of this possibility just kept creeping up. I explained that I'd pushed it aside before, but with Dave and Sarah now showing interest in each other, I felt it was finally time to ask. So, I asked if they'd ever crossed a line, if Ben had ever been unfaithful, or if there was any possibility that Anna's children could be his. I was trying so hard to hold back tears. Their reactions were exactly what I'd expected. Their responses seemed almost rehearsed, perfectly so. I honestly don't know if it was real emotion or skilled gaslighting. Anna was more visibly upset than Ben. She was furious, offended by the accusation, while Ben seemed more heartbroken. Maybe they were both acting, but I can't tell. They had answers for everything I raised, even asked questions I couldn't respond to. Why did I suddenly have an issue with their time alone when I'd never minded before? Did Anna's children really resemble Ben that much? Or are things like hair color just common traits? Our whole family had always treated Anna and her kids as part of our unit, and I'd even praised Ben for stepping up as a father figure since Anna's kids didn't have one. Why was that suddenly a problem? What exactly was I expecting from them? How could I even think such a thing? Why hadn't I spoken up sooner? Ben seemed more understanding of my feelings, or at least acted like it. Anna, though, felt betrayed. I apologized several times, even though I'm not sure I'd done anything wrong. Ben even apologized for anything he'd done that might have led me to doubt him. I asked Anna directly, if not Ben, then who is the father of her children? She snapped back that it wasn't any of my business, and was clearly not in the mood to open up after my accusations. I'm not proud of it, but I lost my temper and said that after everything we'd done for her and her kids, that wasn't much to ask. Maybe she owed us that information. I regretted it instantly. Anna shouted back that I had done nothing for her, that it was Ben and his parents who'd kept her going all these years, not me. She then vented more about how I'd always seemed superior to her, which I didn't think was true, though maybe I came off that way without realizing. Ben tried to calm her down, but the tension in the room was thick. I just don't know what to think anymore. This is driving me mad. There is, of course, a way to know for sure, not about Ben's loyalty, but about Anna's children's paternity. So I asked Ben if he would agree to a paternity test. I told him that I understood he didn't trust or like these tests, but that, for my own peace of mind and for our daughter and our family, I needed this. I could see the hurt in Ben's eyes. Maybe he was acting, but he did seem genuinely upset that his word alone wasn't enough for me. Still, he agreed, very reluctantly, to do a DNA test. Unfortunately, Anna did not, and that's where we hit a wall. Anna was furious at the idea and told me in no uncertain terms that I would not be getting DNA samples from her kids, basically telling me to back off, in multiple ways. I tried to push Ben to support me, but he was reluctant and probably right. He did his best to reason with Anna, but she wouldn't even consider it, and eventually, He just shrugged when I asked for more support. He couldn't force her to get those tests, and I looked into this a lot, even consulted with my lawyer. So, this is truly a dead end. The problem is Ben could, in theory, petition the court to demand a paternity test for Dave and the others. The issue is, to do this, he'd essentially be claiming he slept with Anna and he believes her children to be his. That would be the version of events he'd be maintaining. But Ben has staunchly insisted that nothing ever happened with Anna, that he never cheated on me. Whether he's being honest is another story, but he'd essentially have to go on record and make a claim he isn't prepared to make. He's sure the children aren't his and has no intention of fighting for custody. So, no judge will compel Anna to submit DNA samples. Dave is also old enough that his consent would be needed. If both he and Anna refuse, it's unlikely Ben would have a case. He'd have to target one of Anna's younger kids, like one of the twins. But he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to take his best friend to court to prove something he already believes isn't true. Ben's asking me to please let this go and trust him, because pursuing this will fracture everything. And according to my lawyer, it's not realistic anyway. For Ben to establish paternity, he'd need to admit to an affair, which he won't do. And if he did, that would pretty much be all the proof I'd need, even if it's not enough in court. I pestered him further about Dave and Sarah. Insisted I didn't want them dating. Ben agreed, and apparently Anna still agrees. Ben plans to talk with Dave and set some boundaries. He'll remind Dave that in a few months, when he turns 18, any intimacy with Sarah would be illegal. I wouldn't actually press charges, knowing Dave wouldn't force anything on Sarah, but I'm not above implying the threat. Thankfully, neither is Ben. I did ask if he'd consider swiping a sample of Dave's DNA for a private test, but he was hesitant. Like me, he found it unethical. He also pointed out that if we did this and Anna found out, our friendship would likely end. Ben still thinks there's a chance for Anna and me to reconcile, and I can see how much he wants that. But if I did a DNA test on Dave behind Anna's back, she'd probably be furious, and I wouldn't blame her. Though I'd be very curious about the results. Ben ended up going to see Anna and stayed the night. I know you're all rolling your eyes, and trust me, I wasn't thrilled about it. We had a long talk, but he was adamant that he needed to do damage control. So they spent the night together, with Ben saying nothing happened. I didn't sleep and kept texting him for updates. As far as I can tell, Anna will cool off, but she needs time. Ben and I talked things over when he returned the next morning. It was an emotional conversation, and we ended up agreeing to take the kids, our kids, not Anna's, to visit their grandparents for a few days. It was an impromptu trip, but they were thrilled to have us. I really wanted our family to spend time away from Anna's side of things. I love seeing my in-laws, Jem, 75M, and Kat, 67F. Reddit is full of MIL from hell stories, but that couldn't be further from my reality. I feel safe with them. So much so that, when they noticed the tension between Ben and me, I finally relented and told them my fears, that Ben and Anna might be having an affair and that her kids might be his. Here's where it got interesting. When I told them, Kat gave Jim this pointed look and sighed. Turns out, Kat has shared my suspicions over the years, genuinely wondering if Ben and Anna were closer than they'd ever admit, possibly crossing a line. Jim, on the other hand, refuses to consider it, always saying they're like siblings and would never do something like that. Kat thinks he's naive and that just because they love Anna as a daughter, it doesn't mean Ben views her as a sister, or that she views him as a brother. But Jim just kept insisting that's what they are and always have been. Clearly, they've had this conversation before. Kat pointed out that, sibling-like or not, Ben and Anna aren't actually related, so if they felt a mutual attraction, nothing would stop them. At that, Jim just sighed and walked off. So yes, Kat has wondered if Anna's children could be Ben's, which partly explains why she's always treated them as her grandchildren. I don't mind that Kat didn't share her concerns with me earlier. She had no proof and saw less of Ben and Anna's closeness in our adult lives than I did. As for the kids, they're doing okay. I'm not sure what Anna told her children, but I think the official story is that Anna and I had a fight and need a break. That's what Ben and I told our children, And when pressed, Ben defended me and shut down the questions, saying it wasn't their business. I don't know if Anna stuck to this story, but our kids have each other's numbers and social media, so they've probably still been in touch. I'm guessing my kids would have kept Anna's kids updated, and if she told them anything else major, they would have relayed it to my kids. After all, Sarah and Dave are very close. I did try talking to Sarah more, but the timing was off. She took my reluctance as being about my fight with Anna. She insisted she wasn't dating Dave. To what degree that's true, I don't know. But she's staying close friends with him, and while she's not usually disobedient, she was firm on this. And to be fair, I can't justify separating them as friends. They've known each other for years. Ben backs me up on them not dating, but not on them not hanging out. I wish I had a more definite update. If anything significant happens in the next few days, I'll let you know. I mostly regret not having done the secret test, even for my peace of mind, as now I feel like I've locked myself out of the only way to get clear answers. I didn't expect to be updating again so soon, but after my last post, I spent a lot of time thinking about my kids. I came to the conclusion that no matter what else happened, I had to warn Sarah about the situation, and I had to do it right away. Whatever happened with Ben didn't matter. Even if all the kids ended up finding out, it was more important that Sarah knew what she might be getting herself into. So I decided to keep her out of school discreetly. Last night, we went back to our own home, and this morning after dropping everyone else off, I held Sarah back and drove right past her school. I told her we needed to talk. She looked worried at first, as most teens would, but I quickly assured her she wasn't in trouble. She just needed to hear the truth, why Anna and I had been fighting, and why her dating Dave was out of the question. Carefully, I explained that due to Ben's closeness with Anna and how much Dave resembled him, I suspected that maybe Ben and Anna had been intimate at some point. If there was any chance that Dave's father was actually Ben, it would be a serious problem. Sarah was quiet throughout, and even after I finished talking, she stayed silent for a while. Finally, she said we should include Dave in this conversation. I had no objections, so she texted him, asking him to meet us. They're both missing school today, but Sarah's grades are stellar, and this was important. When Dave arrived, I repeated what I'd told Sarah. I apologized to him if I'd made him feel like he wasn't good enough for my daughter, and to both of them for not coming clean sooner. Then, Sarah and Dave shared a long look. That's when they completely shocked me. Sarah started, with Dave backing her up. They revealed that they'd already known about Ben and Anna, or at least, they'd strongly suspected it. Dave explained he'd overheard some questionable conversations. He'd also heard sounds coming from Anna's room that he would rather forget, but everything pointed to Anna's lover being Ben. Dave had suspected for a long time, and he finally opened up to Sarah about it in January. She agreed with his suspicions. She'd noticed an unusual closeness between her father and his mother, too. They figured that Ben was probably having an affair and that, due to Kendall's allergy, Ben could even be her father. If that was true, it might mean that Dave and his siblings could also be Ben's kids. They'd both come to the same conclusions as me. So, Sarah and Dave devised a plan. They're not in love at all. They never were. They're just best friends. But like me, they didn't want to destroy our family and social circle without concrete evidence, which Dave's been trying to gather. Sarah had desperately wanted to tell me but held back, fearing how much it would hurt me. She didn't know I was already aware and suffering in silence. She apologized for keeping her suspicions to herself, and honestly, we both cried. I assured her it wasn't her fault and that I loved her. In short, Sarah and Dave already knew they might be half-siblings, and they weren't interested in dating each other. Their relationship was meant to rock the boat, pushing Ben and Anna to take action instead of continuing to make a fool out of me. I think Sarah and Dave also saw it as a way to punish them for the affair. Teenagers can be pretty bold. They concocted this story about wanting to date. Every flirtatious gesture I'd witnessed, every touch, they staged it all for Ben, Anna, or both. They'd hoped it would make them uncomfortable enough to step in. When I reacted instead, it confused them, and they wondered why I was the one who cared more than the people involved in the affair. That's why Dave asked me, "Why can't I date Sarah?" He was trying to see if I knew the truth. Maybe I shouldn't be surprised. Sarah and Dave have always been close, sharing everything with each other. I should probably be more concerned about how sneaky they were, but honestly, I'm just relieved they're not actually dating. They could, of course, be lying to me, but they didn't even blink when I suggested they might be related. We even had a bit of a laugh when Dave said he'd been a little offended by my initial resistance to him dating my daughter. I jokingly asked him, "So you don't think she's pretty?" And he shrugged. She is, but so is my English teacher, and I'm not asking her out either. Now, the question is, what do we do from here? We still have to figure that out. I feel so much relief after telling Sarah. It feels like a weight has been lifted from my chest. Knowing she's in my corner, and that Dave is too, means the world to me. Even though I've now basically confirmed that Ben is seeing Anna, I already knew deep down. Now, we just have to decide how to move forward. Dave's already offered to do a DNA test to compare with Ben's, and both he and Sarah advised not to let Ben and Anna know about it, which I agree with. They're fully on my side, and I can't put into words how much that means. Dave's also been working on setting up a camera in Anna's room to catch her with Ben. Sarah told me I needed to divorce her father, and hearing that from my own daughter has made it clearer than ever. She's right. First, I want to address a few points that came up in the comments. I haven't received any DNA test results yet. They can take weeks. However, now that I know Sarah is no longer at risk of dating a relative, the pressure is off. I'll explain more about this soon, but honestly, it doesn't matter anymore whether Ben fathered the children or not. As for the idea that my father-in-law is having an affair with Anna, I seriously doubt it. At worst, he might know or even suspect the truth about Anna and Ben, but it's also possible that he simply refuses to believe they would do such a thing. I've been vague about the details for privacy reasons, but to put it simply, Jim and Anna are both white, while Kat and Ben are not. If Jim had fathered Anna's children, they would look different from how they do. Now, I have an update. While many comments have called me spineless and naive, accusing me of being a sister wife, as someone who used to be Mormon, that hits a specific nerve, and some even claim my story is fake, which I understand. It's the internet, after all. I still want to thank those who have offered kind and supportive comments. I really appreciate it. Apologies if I missed replying to your comment or direct message. I was getting hundreds, so I definitely missed some of them. First things first, I mentioned this in the comments, but it seems like our little team has supposedly recruited my mother-in-law. I say supposedly because Sophie and Dave were going to talk to her about helping with submitting the DNA test, but at my lawyer's advice, I'm staying out of the process. Officially, I told Sophie not to do it, and she said she wouldn't. My Emile hasn't contacted me about it either, though we've been in touch. I'll get into that more in a bit. The point is, I can honestly say I had no knowledge of any DNA test. Loophole City. There's more good news. While I was digging through paperwork in preparation for my divorce, trying to get ahead of Ben, I found something interesting. My name is on the paperwork for our home, but Ben's name is not. I was the one who bought the house. We always meant to add Ben onto the paperwork, but we never got around to it, and eventually the idea was forgotten. My lawyer, Paige, pointed this out to me, and it felt like I'd found a winning lottery ticket on the ground. I don't know where I'd be without Paige. She's a dear friend from college who I reached out to for help, and she's been there for me this past week, not just as legal counsel, but as a friend I really needed right now. The thing is, she's not our lawyer, meaning Ben's and mine. We have our own family lawyer who has helped us out of jams in the past. We had issues with our HOA a few years ago, but that's a different story. Paige specializes in family law and has handled divorces before. Ben remembers her from college and knows she became a lawyer, but he doesn't know she's a divorce attorney. So, I can have her over for coffee under the pretense that we're catching up, and Ben has no idea what's going on. Turns out, he's not the only one who can keep something from his spouse under the guise of being a friend. Now, on to the update. The last time I looked through Ben's phone was about 3 months ago, around the time Sophie and Dave started talking about dating. I found nothing at that time. While I know how to search for recently deleted photos and didn't find anything then, comments taught me how to look for recently deleted messages. So, when Ben was asleep, I did exactly that. I took his phone downstairs and checked the recently deleted messages. I'm glad I did, but I also wish I hadn't, because what I found hurt me deeply. Sure enough, There was a conversation with Anna that had been deleted. Recent texts between them were discussing the conflict between her and me, with Anna calling me a problem, while Ben tried to calm her down, though he never defended me. They both alluded to how they had expected this to happen at some point, meaning me accusing them of having an affair. While the whole conversation and the fact that it was deleted seemed suspicious, nothing was explicitly admitted. I scrolled up a bit higher, to a few days before the confrontation, and Anna's messages started getting more flirtatious. Then I saw it. 5 days before I confronted them, Anna had sent Ben a topless picture, a selfie where she was not wearing a shirt or a bra. I broke down. I knew it was true. I felt it deep down, but seeing the proof cut me like a knife. It doesn't help that Anna's always had bigger breasts than me. I quickly closed the Messages app and checked Ben's recently deleted photos. Sure enough, the same selfie was there, along with others. Anna topless, Anna naked, in different poses showing off her body. There were pictures of them together, cuddling closely like a couple. In some of these photos, she was naked. In others, both of them were. There were videos too. Anna sent Ben a video message of herself topless, and I had to hear her voice talking to him in a tone that made me sick. She said she was sending him a quick video to help him get through the day. In more than one video, she called him her boo, and hearing her say that made me want to throw up. I couldn't take it anymore, so I stopped looking at that point, but for about 5 minutes, I was drawn to keep searching. I went to Ben's laptop next. I knew enough of his passwords to access his iCloud storage, and sure enough, it was more of the same. There were letters, long letters between them. I didn't have the heart to read beyond the first few lines of one of them, but I did read Ben mention our children. There were countless naked and topless selfies of Anna. Selfies of them together. Videos where Anna seemed to be masturbating. And yes, there were sex tapes of the two of them. Tom had once offered to try and hide a camera in Anna's room, but Ben didn't need that. He had a whole stash hidden right under my nose. I scrolled through pages and pages of photos and videos. There were so many, some going back years. Not all of it was sexual, though. There were also pictures of Anna's kids. One video showed Kendall and the twins playing together when they were younger, and Ben and Anna's voices could be heard from behind the camera. There were even old pictures of Ben and Anna from when they were younger, maybe even teenagers. I snapped. All these years, I had been telling myself I must be wrong, that it couldn't be true. But now I knew. I know that no one forced me to look at as much of the evidence as I did, but I'm still hurting badly from having seen it all. In that moment, I wanted to take action, so I did. I called my lawyer, Paige, who is an amazing woman. It was the middle of the night, so I called her twice and she picked up, even though I had woken her. When I asked her to come by and said it was an emergency, she agreed. I also asked her to prepare the paperwork. She told me she had already prepared it since I first reached out to her. While I waited for her, I took the necessary steps on Ben's laptop to make sure he wouldn't be able to disconnect our access to his little stash, changing passwords and everything. When Paige arrived, I went outside to meet her in the car. I spent about half an hour in the passenger seat, crying. She was great about it. Then, I handed her Ben's phone and laptop along with all the evidence she needed. She warned me that this could be considered theft, but I asked her to forward and print copies of everything she could, and then bring the devices back because I just couldn't face doing it myself. She agreed. I went back inside and packed up Ben's things while the house was still asleep. At one point, Andrew got up to use the bathroom and asked what I was doing. I told him I was just cleaning. Ben stirred a couple of times as I worked in the bedroom, but didn't fully wake up. I packed everything into trash bags and loaded it into the car. That's when I woke him up and told him to come outside. He was confused and still half asleep, but he noticed that things were missing. I didn't answer his questions and just told him to come with me. He followed me outside. Once we were by the car, I pulled out the divorce papers and handed them to him. That's when it clicked for him, and he tried to talk me out of it. He softened, trying to be sweet, to be tender. He kept insisting he loved me and that there had never been anything with Anna. He begged me not to tear our family apart. 2 weeks ago, I might have fallen for it because his manipulation was always so convincing, but not now. I didn't tell him that I knew he was lying. I didn't tell him what I'd seen. I just told him we were done. He tried a different approach. He refused to leave. He said the kids were his too, and I had no right to decide they'd stay with me. I presented the paperwork and coldly reminded him that the house was in my name. I told him, under no circumstances would my kids be staying with Anna. He argued for a while, but eventually, he said he would be the bigger person and try to keep the peace. At that point, I didn't care where he went. Before he left, he asked about his phone and laptop, and I told him they were in one of the bags.
I bought myself a little more time.